everybody, and welcome back. This is TJ Perneda. We'll go with day 2 of my broadcast. And today we're going to do 2 segments, since I noticed 15 minutes can go fairly quickly, especially the way I like to talk. So first off, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Braves. And they made a little bit of a splash yesterday, not so much on the major league level, but in the farm system. And being in Portland, I get force-fed a lot of Seattle Mariners, Seattle Seahawks, Pacific Northwest stuff, which is all fine and dandy because that's what we have. That's our market. But the Atlanta Braves made a little splash in the farm system last night with the Seattle Mariners. And they acquired 2014 first-round draft pick Alex Jackson, outfielder from a high school, and Seattle gave him up. And I don't know what exactly Capalella is doing, and John Capalella is doing in Atlanta, but I absolutely love it. You know, he's got Dansby Swanson, the 2015 number 1 pick, now in our system, well, now in the big league squad, and now he just got the 2014 number 6 overall pick in Jackson, and also a player to be named later, which who knows when the later will be determined. I would assume sometime after the Rule 5 draft on December 8th. But the Braves somehow managed to get another highly touted prospect, and the Braves have been working not necessarily for this exact move, but they've been doing all their previous trades throughout the last 2 seasons have basically built up to a trade of this nature. And this nature is a power bat or an up-and-coming young bat that could be very useful for years to come. Jackson, an outfielder, can theoretically replace Markakis in a few years. Jackson only reached, I believe, Double-A, maybe not even. He might have reached High A last year with the Mariners organization. So that still puts him realistically 3 years away from being in the show. And Nick Markakis' contract, I believe, is up in 2, maybe 3 years. So that actually works out perfectly. And Jackson is a powerful bat. He does have a tendency to strike out quite a bit, which is a little concerning, but you know what? Most power guys, that's what that comes with the territory. You're going to hit for power, you're going to strike out a lot. So that we're okay with that, especially with some guys that put the ball in play quite often. You got Swanson, who puts the ball in play very often. You got Freeman, who puts the ball in play very often. Hopefully Malik Smith can figure out how to hit at this level. He did struggle last year, but, you know, it's just growing pains as a rookie. So you try to put him around some guys that put the ball in play frequently, and it'll lessen the blow on how often he strikes out. And the Braves gave up two pitchers, Rob Whalen and Jake Povs, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Two pitching prospects. So Atlanta's big-time trades throughout the last couple of years, you know, the Simba trade, the Shelby Miller trade, a lot of trades that they've been pulling off, even guys that went under the radar. This is basically what it did. You got a deep pitching system, and now you're able to get rid of some pitching, a little bit of pitching. You know, these are guys that have been talked about to be very polished. So that's encouraging for a Mariners fan, since this is more of a deeper level in the future type trade. Let's see who's going to win this trade. There's probably still a few years before we even find out who really wins the trade. On paper, it looks like the Braves won because they got the number 6 overall pick from the 2014 draft class and someone to be named later. So who knows how big that player to be named later could actually be. Whalen came over in the trade a couple years ago in the Kelly Johnson to the New York Mets trade, which won, right? I believe he was also in the deal with it was the Kelly Johnson Juan Uribe trade. So he's been in the minors for a few years. So I believe he's gonna start out most likely in AAA Tacoma for the Mariners. So there's a guy who could make somewhat of an impact sooner rather than later, especially after the trade of Walker that the Mariners made last week. So this should be interesting trade. Poffs just made it to Carolina, High A Carolina. Was an All-Star, so that's very promising also for the Mariners. But going back to this trade, you have two polished pitchers for a powerful bat, or obviously a prospect, hopefully projectability-wise, a good power bat, and then a player to be named later, which I would assume is another position guy, since the Braves are very deep in the pitching part of their system. But you never know. It could also be another pitcher who could be trade bait. It could be a number of different guys in the Mariners organization. And what makes this trade even better as a Braves fan is Jackson was the 96th best prospect in all of baseball. He was the Mariners' 6th best prospect. So he's highly touted and highly liked in the Mariners organization. So to be ranked that high and then to get moved, great move by the Braves. And as the two pitchers that they gave up, Whalen and Poves, they were 22nd and 26th, respectively, in the Braves pipeline. I don't believe they were in the top 100, especially being low even in the Braves system. But they are so very prospect-heavy right now. So I think it's a pretty good trade for both sides. Like I said earlier, we're still a few years away from maybe even figuring out who really wins this trade. But that's pretty much the recent news. Also, the Braves had to make room for Sean Rodriguez, the signing they had last week. He needs a place on the 40-man roster, and Whalen was a spot on the 40-man roster that was already full. So there was more to this trade than just 2 for 2, and to trade some prospects. Sean Rodriguez needed a roster spot. Whalen had one, and so it's a business, and I'm sure Whalen understands. I'm sure it's never tough, or it's never easy, to trade prospects, especially on ones that you think you're supposed to be pretty contributed players in the future, as Whalen and Poves were, as Jackson for the Mariners. So it should be interesting. Rodriguez needed a spot, and Jackson is still under team control. There's no possibility of the Rule 5 draft. He was only drafted in 2014, so he's still got a year or two before he's even eligible for that. So this is a very safe trade for the Braves and the Mariners. This does a lot of good for both sides, which is good. It's a good baseball trade. I am a fan of the Atlanta Braves, but I'm also a big fan of just baseball in general. So I was also very pleased with the World Series that happened in October, early November, because it was good for baseball more than anything. So this trade has been, it'll take a few years, but at the same time I'm very excited to see where both sides end up with this trade. I hope Atlanta wins it. Obviously they're my favorite team, so I hope they come out on top with this trade, and right now I think on paper they will, since they got the number 6 pick of the 2014 draft. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened. That happened yesterday evening after I did my first broadcast yesterday. So that's pretty much what chalked up this segment here, I guess you could call it. So just wanted a quick touch on that. Hopefully the Braves are making small talks with a few players on the hot stove tracker. You have Cespedes just getting off the market back to New York for the Mets. So hopefully, that puts a lot more pressure on guys like Encarnacion, Bautista. So those names should be going fairly quickly, you would think. they would like to do that before the turn of the year. So, but definitely be on the lookout. I will definitely make another segment once big names get taken off the market. I will touch briefly on the Cespedes one with the Mets. It's reported 4 years, $110 million for a guy who's already into his 30s, so a little bit of a risk there. But it's also, the guy does a lot of good things on the offensive side for the Mets. So is it a risk? I believe so. $110 million for 4 years. I believe I saw a breakdown of his contract. It's somewhere along the lines of $25 million this year, and then the other 3 years is $29 million. So there's real optimism there for the Mets that hopefully he can keep producing for those 4 more years. But you never know. You had to take a big. They wanted to keep Cespedes, and I think they should have tried to keep him. And with so many power guys being on the market, you knew they were going to have to spend a little bit more money than they were going to want to. But who knows? This could be a good deal for Cespedes and the Mets, and hopefully he produces. If you're a Mets fan, I personally hope he falls off a little bit and makes the Mets regret giving him all this money for early to mid 30-year-old outfielder who just really hits home runs and doesn't do a whole lot else. Yes, he has a good arm, but we all remember he also dropped a fly ball in the playoffs a couple years ago. So, there's a little defensive liability to him despite the good arm that he has. But he definitely makes most of that $110 million paycheck that he's about to cash in on the offensive side. So that should be interesting. And now, like I said, guys like Edwin Encarnacion is going to draw even more interest. Bautista is going to draw a ton of interest moving forward, especially by AL teams. He's already in his 30s, doesn't run all that well. So expect for an AL team to really make a push to try to switch him to a DH role. So who knows? Maybe he even signs back with Toronto and takes over Encarnacion's DH spot. But, there's definitely a lot of money to be thrown around still. The winter meetings aren't for another couple weeks. So I expect it to be fairly quiet on the MLB front for the next week or so until the winter meetings start and things really start to heat up. Then this hot stove tracker really gets to the high heat, and there'll be a lot of names and a lot of money flying around, and it should make baseball very interesting. I'll go ahead and end this segment right here, and I'm going to go on another segment here in a few minutes talking about the Oakland Raiders and where I see their season going from here on out after the win on Sunday, moving forward the last 5 games of the season. So this is, once again, the Brave segment of the show, and I'm going to be right back, and we're going to get underway with some football, mainly Oakland Raider football. So stay tuned, and I will definitely be back here in the next few minutes with this Oakland Raider segment. So thank you guys for listening to the baseball side. If you want to listen on, there'll be a football segment here in the next few minutes. So thank you guys, and I will be back in a few.